what's an example of a fire that you lived through?
I had a really terrible situation with a tweet that I posted that went psychotically viral. In theory, got me canceled. I posted a tweet. I had run a half marathon. I'm very naive about things. I had no idea you have to sign up for half marathons. I posted a very emotional tweet following the half marathon, and there was one sentence in it that was like, I didn't even sign up, I just started running. It was on every media outlet. I made the front page of newspapers. Guys I had matched with on Bumble when I was 15 were being like, is this you? It's crazy, but I lived through it, but it was awful. I mean, I still get death threats to this day.
I love that, the moral of this story is to put yourself out there, and you never know what will happen as a result. You will get beyond it, and sometimes the greatest successes come from what seems to be the biggest pitfall.
Always.
Hi, Alexa. Welcome to All Over Again podcast. It's so great to see you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm just going to jump right in because you have a great background story, and there's so much to talk about. You've shared that you were bullied as a child. Can you please share how that experience impacted you and who you are today?
Yes. So I was bullied, in, I think, middle school up until early high school. And then I transferred out to online school my sophomore year of public high school. I grew up in a really small town in Eastern Connecticut, never fit in. And when I was 12, I started this fashion blog. And so I always knew I was a bit different. I wouldn't have said back then I was entrepreneurial, but I guess looking back, I was quite entrepreneurial. And the blog really turned out into being what I really do for a career now. It started as the blog, but, growing up in a small town, being different, not fitting in, not being good at school. I was definitely the perfect target to get bullied, but luckily I was able to turn it into something positive and build it out into this career.
So I have to ask, what was the source of the bullying?
So, I was not anywhere near what I am now. I was not confident. I didn't have many friends. I wouldn't even call myself a nerd because I wasn't even that book smart. So I loved to just wear different clothing, and I really kept to myself, and I didn't really talk a lot. And so there was just certain instances throughout growing up that I definitely remember that stemmed from just really mean girls. And it's quite common. And, anytime you're in a small town where someone's doing something different, that is not necessarily the way to attract the best attention. So I was doing something that was totally out of the box, being public online and pursuing this blog, and it did not go over too well in public school, but
that sounds so cool to me. You were not like everyone else. And so you didn't fit the traditional mold. And so people felt like you're different, and they sort of targeted in on that. I think that's something to appreciate and applaud. And so it's very fascinating to me what kids pick up on. And I think a lot of the times it almost stems from their own insecurities that they then project.
For sure. It's always like that. And it's always like that. That's, I think, the root of most kids bullying. But you don't really realize it, right, until you're out of it,
Sure.
Until you, grow up and move on and whatnot.
So how did that impact you?
Well, it definitely, I would say, expedited the process of this career, which is what started as a fashion blog. And that's not what I do now in terms of being an entrepreneur. But that blog really became my outlet. It became a place where I was able to make friends and meet people, kind of being able to find this community of girls that I felt like accepted me. Whereas in my regular school life, I felt like such an outsider. So positively, it affected me then. And I wouldn't say that now it's affected me to where, I have in any capacity PTSD from the bullying, but it definitely was a very difficult time for me in terms of growing into myself. And I think I lacked a lot of confidence that people have at a younger age. It really took me a lot later into my 20s to find that. And I think a lot of it is stemmed by how much of an outsider I felt like from that school environment and from the bullying.
It's amazing how, when we really think about how huge the world is, I think there are something like 8 billion people in the world. But when you're in it and you have this small sort of group and you don't have your own community, you feel like there's nothing else that's out there. So let's talk about body image and confidence. I know that's something that you talk a lot about. And what would you say to parents who are trying to support their kids who have body image issues or are concerned about that?
I think any parent really nowadays struggles, and specifically with social media, with actually knowing how to talk to their kids about it, because it's almost like such a progression with how toxic it's become. And of course, if you didn't grow up with social media, you're not going to have any idea of how to talk to your kids about it. So I really advise parents to join groups, to read up on it, to have honest and open conversations at the dinner table, and actually look through what their kids see online. I think the biggest thing is they don't realize the detrimental side effects of the scrolling and seeing someone else in school who's doing something different than you are doing, or something on social media that really would make you feel insecure. And so I think to be able to look through a feed with a child and come to a conclusion of how certain things make them feel helps tremendously, allowing an open conversation for parents to talk to their kids and vice versa about certain things. And for me, the body image thing definitely stemmed from like out of high school, really from the bullying, and just into my like late teens. That was something that I really struggled with. And so it was actually a post that I first put out online. I think maybe when I was like 16 or 17, that really went kind of viral in my community on a website like Huffington Post. And it was at that time that I didn't realize how many other young people were coming from small towns and really struggling with that same insecurity and those same feelings about body image, even pre really social media. And so that's when I started to talk and open that door a lot more, specifically for parents as well.
And social media really seems to exacerbate that, doesn't it? So, what are some tips for parents that are trying to help alleviate some of the stressors as a result of social media and sort of this unparalleled and sort of ridiculous expectation that kids have about what they should look like?
I would love to advise every parent to be on social media to see what their kids are seeing. Of course, again, that conversation that's really important of what does it make you feel like if you see this or if you see this? In the same way that, maybe back in the early 2000s, you might open up a magazine and see a photo of a very thin model and think like, oh, that makes me feel insecure. Well, now they're seeing it not in the aisles at the grocery store. They're seeing it at school or with their friends or online. And so there's a lot of access to be able to bring up these conversations. And so it's just making the time for it. And I think also something I would wish was taught a lot more in school is really like friendships and relationships and what to happen when you outgrow certain friendships or outgrow certain relationships. I think a lot of young women struggle with feeling like when sometimes these relationships out of middle school, out of high school end, that sometimes there's something wrong, when in reality, people just evolve and grow. And you don't really realize that until looking back, that you realize how that friendship just ended. It was just two people on two different paths. And so that could be also something really good and honest for parents to talk about.
Right. It feels so myopic when you're in it, right? And they don't have the experience as children. And again, there's 8 billion people in the world, right? And you find your people. You just have to give yourself the opportunity to find them and your community. On that note, do you speak at all about that it's okay to delay about even getting onto social media platforms?
I would love for every child to never get on a social media platform until they're 18.
Wouldn't that be
But it
grand?
doesn't, yeah, but it doesn't happen that. But yes, I mean, I say the longer you can push it off, the better.
That would be amazing. I know there's a lot of pressure, and there's some of these pockets of okay to delay is an actual specific program that is now launching. I think the first chapter actually launched in Connecticut, which is interesting. And now it's a national organization, and they are popping up all over the country. They're 2 moms that created this, and now there are chapters. They're really trying to push off the delay of giving children smartphones until they are, I think, in 8th or even 9th grade. It's so hard, especially with the pressures. Let's talk about you. Get back to you. What would you do all over again, and why?
If I could choose anything, I probably would not have moved out at such a young age, because financially it really pushed me back many years in terms of, I would say, like building any form of wealth. But when I look back on why I moved out so young, I mean, I really don't think my story would have ended up turning out into what it is today if I had stayed in such a small town. So perhaps I could have done it a bit differently. So that's probably the one thing I would have done differently.
Well, how old were you?
I was like 16 and a half when I moved out from where I'm from in Eastern Connecticut to New York.
You moved to New York City by yourself at 16 and a half. And your parents were like, that's cool?
A lot of people ask me, like, what were your parents thinking? When I asked my mom now, why did you let me do that? She was like, there really was no way to stop you. Like, you came and you were like, this is what I moved. Like, this is what I'm doing. I was finishing high school online. I mean, I didn't, financially, I think my parents were like, she's going to come back because she doesn't have any money. So I also remember, I don't think I told them like, I'm planning to move. I think I was like, this girl's letting me stay at her place for a month during fashion week. And because I was finishing high school online, I wasn't like required to be at school. And so then after that, I never came back. And in that 30-day period figured out how to make money to pay for this girl's place ongoing through an Instagram takeover that I pitched. I mean, I was always quite mature, but it was still, I think, too young to be there on my own, but I lived through it.
So do you think that moving out at a young age inspired your hustle?
I always had the hustle in me. I think it didn't inspire it. I think it forced it, like a make or break in that scenario, because I was constantly on the edge of not being able to afford anything. So if you can't afford anything, like, how are you going to exist? But I mean, I was just still am, but back then, I mean, incredibly passionate about business. And I loved being able to make money. I loved negotiating certain business deals. I mean, at the time, I was building my website, and what was paying my bills with these TV segments I was pitching. And so it gave me flexibility. It was also incredibly painful a lot of the time when things went wrong, but it gave me flexibility to be able to do and create this schedule that I wanted in a day. And I just loved that.
Is that what prompted you to pitch Radio Disney with your show Fearless Every Day?
Yeah, I had a podcast I started, moved to Boston from New York after about a year of living in New York. And I always am kind of pretty notorious for just sending out a lot of cold emails. And I had found this producer list, and I BCC'd a bunch of people with just kind of like an introductory email about myself. And on the list was the VP at Disney. And so I had no idea what would come to fruition when I got a response from them to set up a meeting. But it ended up being me pitching this show. And so it kind of just worked out in that domino effect from that first email that I sent to the beginning of the conversations we were having.
So you sent out a mass email and BCC'd a bunch of people, and Disney actually got back to you?
I have no idea why, but yes, they did.
Not like, yeah. Oh my gosh, but honestly, like being on the other side, right? And working with brands and having worked on the PR agency side, I'm impressed that it wasn't even a personalized email and it got a response. Like nowadays, you have to personalize everything or no one will even respond to you. But your content must have been that good that they were like, oh, well, she's pitching this to a bunch of people, but I'm going to reach out. So what was your recipe?
I think it was definitely a stroke of luck in that. I had been doing a lot of different TV segments. And so I remember I had put that in the email, but it was very much the VP at the time, his name was Phil, and his assistant actually is who responded to me. So I think it got forwarded from Phil to Angela, who at the time was his assistant. And so I remember, I had emailed everyone at MTV, Nickelodeon, Amazon, Hulu, MGM Studios. And it was all either no response or just rejection. And so I remember when I got the email from Angela, I was like on the edge of my seat being like, this is so interesting. But I think there's something really fearless, but also very naive about doing that kind of thing that I do and that I still often do. And I really attribute a lot of people's success to being naive, because the other side of it is, had I been like, they're never going to reply to me, I never would have gotten a reply, right? So before I even go to do something like that, I'm already like, okay, it doesn't even matter. So I don't even allow myself to be scared of it, because to me, it just seems like it's not going to happen. And so I don't think of it like it's not going to happen because of me personally. I'm just like, this email's probably never even going to go through to them. So when I've written it, it's forgotten about so fast.
Wow. So you're already prepping yourself for the possibility of rejection, so it doesn't bother you.
Yeah, I live pretty much in that headspace, and I've been so used to it that it's like another one doesn't even matter anymore.
So how has your fearlessness affected and supported where you are today?
In like really good ways and really bad ways. I mean, overall, I think in business, it's supported me in the best way. I think it's definitely also, though, put me in certain situations where I've had to just grow through the process, some really painful ones in business. At the end of the day, anyone who's embarking on entrepreneurship sets themselves up for a lot of fires, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety and craziness 24/7. But if you're really a true, pure entrepreneur, then that's the ability to bounce back from those fires or situations is just ingrained in you, and you just figure it out along the way.
So, what's an example of a fire that you lived through that you were like, I can't believe I lived through this and I'm better for it?
I mean, in April, I had a really terrible situation with a tweet that I posted that went psychotically viral. In theory, like got me canceled. It was a terrible, terrible situation. I don't even want to say I thought it was the end for me. I remember just feeling, I mean, I thought I was in a movie, but not a good movie, like a horror film. And, it's based on your life. So that was terrible. I got sued and that was terrible. So some really heavy shit to have experienced at 27. But I definitely feel now, like, glad I lived through it, but I feel a lot more, like I was never really someone that I've always been very like forward and direct in business. But now it was like a new level of like, I don't take on any bullshit. Like there is just no even bullshit anywhere in my life. I've been through so much, like on a personal level. So I don't play games. Like I'm very forward in business. I just ask for what I want. All I want is someone to just say, no, I'm not interested. So like, I don't like even the in between of like waiting for someone to reply or waiting for a brand to reply, just reply and say, no problem. But like, I need to move on. It's made me very, fearlessly persistent to just get answers back ASAP.
I can imagine. So the tweet was business and orientation? I'm so confused.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look up the story, so I don't have to like
I will
ramble on
not
about
make
it.
you relive this. I don't want you to have to
No,
relive
it's
it.
fine. No, now that I look back on it, it's actually quite fascinating. But no, I posted a tweet. I had run a half marathon. I had no idea. Like I said, I'm very naive about things. I had no idea you have to sign up for half marathons. So I just started running in this half marathon. I posted a very emotional tweet following the half marathon. And there was one sentence in it that was like, I didn't even sign up. I just started running and like, keep running and all this stuff in business. And at the time I was getting sued and a few months before my ex-boyfriend had broken my heart and etc. In that period of time, that tweet amassed 9 million fault impressions within 24 hours. Taking note, like I tweeted a lot, but like never to this extent. And it ended up, it was just like a fire. I mean, anyone who's been canceled or that you've seen, and like I'm no Kim Kardashian, so I would never have even thought this could happen to me. But anyone anyone in media who's been canceled in that way, it was a play-by-play of that. And it happened to me, and it was a terrible, traumatic situation. And at some point during that day, this very positive tweet just took a twist. I think it took one person being like, what do you mean you didn't sign up for a half marathon? To the whole narrative just switched. And it was on, it was on every media outlet. Like I made like the front page of newspapers. Like people were calling me. Guys I had matched with on Bumble when I was like 15 were being like, is this you? And it's crazy, but I lived through it. But it was awful. I still get death threats to this day, which is bizarre.
I'm so confused. It's like in my head, I'm like, you weren't calling anyone out. You weren't doing anything that was abrasive. I hate to say this, but what am I missing?
No, I know. And I can't really, I try and play very neutral on it because I made a mistake. I didn't know that you had to sign up. I ran. But I think when people ask me, like, why do you think it happened? I think number one, I think it happened is because anyone wants to bring down influencers. Unfortunately, this society, and that's what I love about e-commerce is that I don't have to be like, I'm building a business now that I don't have to be the face of, because I saw firsthand how toxic this industry is and how toxic this narrative we have about celebrities and media and influencers is. So I think it was number one that, like, I think it's just, you don't want to see, it's a lot easier to bring someone down, right? Who like in theory is, and not, I struggle every single day. Every single day of my life, I feel like is very hard. You don't want to see that success, you think, because you see like a glimpse of it for someone. And then it's the same way as people bullying, but this was on another scale. So it was that. And then I made an error. I didn't sign up. I mean, the running community is a very tight-knit, very vocal community that I had no idea about, but that was it. Like, I made a mistake, and I followed up by being like, I would say the next day after it started is when I got an email from the New York Post that I'll never forget. And I was like walking down the street, and I was buying like Nespresso pods from someone on Facebook Marketplace. I had just had this incredible event. And I got an email from the New York Post being like, we want to interview you about the backlash. And my heart, I don't even know how to explain it. I just remember being like, what the fuck is going on? And I went on Twitter, and I immediately was like, there's no way this is happening. I replied and was like, what do you want to interview me about? And they were like, your tweet. And I was like, not interested. And I was like, that's the end of it. Like, I didn't say anything. And it was in hours that it was just like CBS and NBC. And it went on for weeks. I mean, I didn't post on the internet, I think, for 2 months. It was a very difficult time.
Of course it was. That is unreal, actually. And I think you're right. I think that this day and age, everyone feels like they have an opinion on everything. That seems like a really hard time. But there's nothing that the media and the public love more than a good comeback story. Yeah. So are you writing your comeback story?
So I think by like June is when I did a podcast and everything. And for me, I really wanted to bring attention to it. And unfortunately, something I realized is like, this is going to continue to happen. And there's no way to fix this. And in that way, I was up against a mob. It was one person up against a mob of millions of people. But you have to really, that's when you really have to seek in your soul and like the people in your life and really think like, does any of this matter? These people don't know me. This is kind of insane. But it's very hard, like, to be in your 20s and see that firsthand. It makes you really cautious of your surroundings, I think, at any given time.
Did that experience impact your relationships?
And relationships, I mean, you mean with like personally or business?
Personally, business, anything. Did it change the dynamics? Did it show you who your real friends were, who was really behind you, like supporting you?
Yeah. And luckily, I mean, I have such a strong support system. And I mean, 99% of people have your reaction of like, what am I missing here? But it was the 1%, which is quite a big percent, especially in America, that, went after me on the internet, millions of people. And so like in theory, it makes no sense. And I look back and I still try and comprehend. I just have to think that it happened to me to teach me a lesson in business. But I didn't lose any friends. I think everyone thinks at this point, even in your regular work, even if you're not public online, you could say anything or write one email and you could be canceled or fired. I think people do really live on the edge, but you see these things happen to other people and you never think it's going to happen to you. And so my friends and whatnot, one's in media, one's not. I mean, I had people reaching out to me from ages ago that seeing these things online. I was really grateful that no one like turned on me because I didn't hurt anyone besides a community that I apologized to. But I mean, I got some emails from people in business that I think were like very nasty. But again, you have to think like these people don't know me. The people in my real life know that like I would never intentionally make a mistake to hurt someone. And so that was kind of that.
As far as the learning was concerned, what was your takeaway? You shared that you had a big learning.
I mean, my big learning was just, it's something as simple as like, don't post everything on the internet.
Don't post your whole life on the internet, like everything that you do.
Yeah, but I thought I was pretty good at it. And I think that was what people were like, oh, this is your lesson. I have always been very cautious with what I posted on the internet. And I think one of the hardest things for me was to have like my mom and my dad being like, but why would you post that? And I was like, because I told you, I didn't know there was anything wrong with it. Like, and I still, to this day, I posted a tweet that I got hundreds of thousands of people being like, this tweet really helped me. That was my intention. And it should not have spiraled into what it did. And so I don't regret the tweet at all. I regret the mistake that I made in it, which was jumping in and not realizing. But a lot of people also replied and were like, I didn't know you had to sign up. It's like, it was very simple, but it just spiraled.
Well, the message I took from again, you just sharing the post with me was to just keep running, to just keep going, to not give up. That's the takeaway that I got. And I know people take running very seriously. And clearly it sounds like so were you in saying, just keep going, just keep doing. And this was an accomplishment for me as well, right? So maybe I don't see the mockery in it. I wasn't there. I didn't read the tweet, but like, I don't see the mockery in it. And that's a rough lesson to have in the public's eye.
It's also very fascinating. Yeah. And if you do look it up after this, it comes up pretty easily, unfortunately, but I think it's also a really fascinating human interest story. What happened and the lengths that people are willing to go to bring someone down and the access people have on the internet, all of that. I find, in a way, when I look back on it now, it's quite an interesting human interest story, in my opinion.
Well, that's just it. It's a very interesting story that people will go to all ends to make a human interest story so sensational. And here you were trying to, applaud your efforts for doing this very long run. A half marathon is not an easy feat.
No.
And uplift other people by saying, no matter what you do, just keep running and you can do it. I appreciate and applaud where you were trying to go. And it sounds like there was some legal ramification with that.
No, that was two different things all simultaneously happened in 1 6-month period. Lucky me, right? But no, there was no, there was no legal ramifications with that. I ended up deleting the tweet and not posting and whatnot, but
you talked about that. Wait, you talked to me a little bit at one point about legal ramifications and to always have a lawyer. So why would you suggest always having a lawyer? Clearly things happen, but for protecting your interests in business, would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Sure. I think it depends very much depends on what you're doing. Like if you're a traditional influencer and you just work with brands and you make money, et cetera, I wouldn't say so. I would say if you really have a fully blown business and people working for you and contracts you're signing, to either educate yourself on major things to look out for in contracts or to have a lawyer. And a lot of times you don't realize the ramifications of clauses and things like that and non-compete agreements. And so it's very important that even if things look really good, to have someone who knows to read the fine lines, read it, just to make sure that you're always covered in case something goes wrong.
That makes sense. So insofar as business is concerned, I'm hearing you say, always make sure you're covered with a contract so that your rights are observed. And the more public you are, probably the more likely that you need that coverage and support.
Yes, 100%. And also, not everything needs a contract, but certainly if like money is involved, et cetera, then yeah, some form of a contract is ideal. And I made definitely a big error of signing a pretty big contract at one point, and none of it was in my favor. And I did that based on like just wanting to get it done with fast. And that was a massive error. And so don't speed through something like that because it will not be good for you in the long run.
So what are some of the other pitfalls that you've experienced as an entrepreneur that you would caution others with or about?
Oh gosh, contracts. Yeah, contracts. I've been in business now for 10 plus years, from such a young age to now. You really see how, kind of crazy people can be. I just mean like very backstabbing, very edgy, wanting to get things done fast. I think anyone in business who can be kind is really going to get there a lot further in terms of success because, kindness is key. And a lot of times it's just such a hard world to live in. And so in business and also in real life. So of course, if you can be kind to the people around you, that's very much ideal.
So taking a step back, we were talking about what guideposts that you would give entrepreneurs, and being kind, of course, is important. You were talking about how some of the media that you have worked with has been a little bit challenging at times. And when you say media, I'm guessing you're referring to as journalists, not actual like advertising media.
Anyone, media, PR, editors, producers, it's a very fast-paced industry. So I think if you want to be on that side of the industry in business, you have to really be a certain kind of personality to put up with that world of like media and entertainment. And I have kind of both backgrounds because I have the influencer side, but I've also worked a lot in TV. I worked at Disney, so I saw that. But then in your day-to-day business operations, if you want to do anything that's not in media, it's sales, right? Everything is sales and trying to get people to buy. And it's a lot of times it feels like a hamster wheel. So you have to be comfortable and confident in yourself to know that X amount of rejection doesn't mean that it's a no for forever. I always like to say a no is a no now, but a yes in 2 years, and really be comfortable in that cycle.
And so what is lighting you up right now? What's your latest and greatest project that you're focused on?
I started a new company over the summer called Chief Swag, and we've become actually the #1 custom microphone pop cover brand out there. So we customize different microphone products, and we have a plethora of other products, but our #1 bestseller is for this product called the Rode handheld. And so it's my first e-commerce venture, and it's been quite challenging, quite exciting, quite interesting. And so I pretty much do that all the time. I still do a lot of the influencer stuff, but predominantly focus on Chief Swag and scaling that. And I love it so far.
That's amazing. So tell us why we should buy a covered microphone.
Yeah, so it's a custom microphone cover. So for example, like your microphone doesn't have a cover on it, right? And microphones are not pretty. They're very ugly.
So ugly.
#1, yeah. #1, it helps, your content go viral. So for example, say you posted an episode with a guest and, your content went viral, and then you just have no one really knows who you are besides like it being tagged or shared, right? If you have the microphone cover on it, obviously people are instantly attracted to like know who you are, follow you further. And so it's really great brand awareness in that way. And the second reason is that the main 2 companies on the market are these brands, Rode and DJI. Any product you buy from them, even Shure, which is another form of a mic, not your one, but a lot of ones you see in like podcast studios, all say their logo on it. And so 99.9% of creators are giving so much free publicity, in a sense, away to these brands that are like putting very large branded logos for them on these products. But in reality, you could pay $25 and your logo can be on it. And they're, you can travel with them, et cetera. And so we've seen a lot of corporations interested in it, a lot of one-off content creators and podcasters.
So brand awareness is the play. And what was the moment that you were like, oh, this is a no-brainer. Like I need to help people brand themselves through their microphones. I mean, duh, to me, like as a marketer, I'm like, of course that makes sense. So, but tell me when the moment was that you were like, aha, this is what I'm going to do.
Well, about a year ago, I was trying to make this product for myself. But I did kind of right before this, and still sometimes now, where these Be Fearless events. So all these young women come and they hear from celebrity speakers and entrepreneurs, et cetera. If I ever do another one, you would be an incredible speaker. I think I may try and do one next year. And so I was trying to, like any entrepreneur, I was trying to find the product for myself. I couldn't find it. I was very frustrated. And so this whole spiral kind of happened of like, the thing with the running happened, and it really over the summer like affected me and my business and whether or not I thought I had it in me to go anymore. But I kept thinking in the back of my mind, I had this, I don't know, it was just, I don't know how to explain it, but I had this weird feeling like, why don't you just try and figure out how to do this? Why, like if you want it, other people must want it. And so I actually had a calendar invite every day on my calendar from the day the running thing happened until I actually managed to start doing it in August. And so it took me a really long time to figure out how to print onto this particular product because it's a very complicated and hard form of printing. And then I launched it as an Etsy shop. And I had never done an Etsy shop, nothing before. I didn't even know, what these products were called. Like they're actually called pop covers and mic flags and all these things. And I was in Zurich at the time and I made the Etsy shop, went to the airport, flew back to London, turned my phone off of airplane mode. And I remember taking note, like I hadn't made any money after the running thing for months. Like I was like barely affording my bills. And I turned my phone off of airplane mode. And the same way you get like a Venmo notification, it's almost like this cha-ching. I got so many of them and I'm like, oh my God, I'm being hacked. Like what the fuck's going on? And I look and it was like sale. And I just remember I was like alone at the airport, like waiting for the train back into the city. And I just started crying because I think there was a part of me that was like, oh my God, like you were right. Like it was almost kind of felt like I was taking one last chance on myself. And so I then from there was like, okay, let me see if I can build and scale this into a company and not just like a side hustle. And it grew from there.
You were like a phoenix rising from like the ashes of mental health purgatory.
I know.
It's incredible. So you've launched your new company, your new baby, your baby's out in the world. Yet another reason that you're clearly fearless. What makes you fearless?
I think what makes me fearless is my ability to go into things, even being naive, and still try them out. I don't live in a state of fear that it won't work out. I always think in the opposite, but what if it does? So I think that allows me to be truly fearless.
What would you recommend to other people to harness their fearlessness?
Well, I always like to say if you can try something small every single day that gets you out of your comfort zone, that's really ideal. That can be something as simple as trying a new coffee shop or introducing yourself to someone or trying a new gym. And what people don't realize about something as small as that, right, is that in that period of time, you may meet someone or introduce yourself to someone. You may get a job. Like, you have no idea what's going to happen by putting yourself in new scenarios. And so I think that's very much the first step. I also have found that for me, traveling anywhere alone, like, I love solo travel. I think being in scenarios where you are the most uncomfortable is truly when you grow the most. And there's been tons of times where I've been alone somewhere, and that's really when I've been quite scared, and that's what's gotten me out of my comfort zone.
Do you have a story you can share that you were like, wow, I didn't know it was going to turn into this? I mean, clearly you shared a really good story earlier about, Radio Disney, but can you please share something where you were personally, where you thought, wow, this was something totally unexpected?
From travel or just anything?
Anything. Putting yourself in a place of discomfort publicly.
I mean, I can even tell you something recently. I was in Helsinki for a conference. I had never gone there. I booked an Airbnb. It was very last minute, maybe 2 weeks ago. And I was at the grocery store, and they have these candy things there. And I posted a TikTok, and the TikTok went viral, and I ended up on the news, and I had thousands of people from Helsinki being like, let me take you around Helsinki. All of these crazy things. And I was just this almost dumb American at the store being like, look at all of the candy. I had no idea. And I was alone. I went there alone. I didn't know anyone. I ended up meeting my now best friend at this conference. And I just think something like that. But I love to be alone. I'm someone who really thrives on being alone. And so I have a lot of fearless experiences every day because I just don't know. I'm always learning something new here. And so I ask a lot of people questions, and I start talking to a lot of people. And so I'm very good at banter now because I'm just curious. You're not always so curious if you're American in America.
Something tells me you've always been pretty good at banter. I'm just saying. But in any case, I love that, the moral of this story is to put yourself out there, and you never know what will happen as a result. And even if something rough happens, you too shall survive, right? You will get beyond it. And sometimes the greatest successes come from what seems to be the biggest pitfall. So if you were to share any parting words with our guests, what would they be?
If you can email someone every single day and introduce yourself, that would be great. Ideally, you could even find 5 people a day or 5 people new a week on LinkedIn or social media. And I have a thing I like to do. It's kind of like an introductory email. A lot of times people won't want to reach out to someone because they're like, there's no point. There's always a point, even if there's no point. That's what I call it, the on the radar email. And my on the radar emails are basically you see someone, how I was with Disney. I want to be on your guys' radar because at one point you may need a girl like me or someone in business like me. And so I like to say everyone should write these on the radar emails to just introduce yourself to people so that if there ever is anything, you come to their mind. And so I highly suggest people do that.
I love that. Alexa, thank you so very much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure. And
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And I cannot wait to hear what happens next, particularly with Chief Swag.